Hi everyone, welcome everyone. Step right in, grab a seat, and let's begin our journey through something that defines the British spirit far more than Big Ben or Buckingham Palace ever could. The holy trinity of tea, rain, and manners. Now, you might think I'm joking, but truly, these three elements are like the invisible threads that weave through the fabric of everyday British life. Forget the monarchy for a second. Forget the Beatles even. If you want to understand the British people, their humor, their patience, and their odd little habits, then you need to understand how they handle a cup of tea, a drizzle of rain, and an awkward social situation. So, picture this. It's a cloudy afternoon in London. The kind of sky that looks like it's been painted entirely in shades of grey. You're walking down the street, perhaps near Covent Garden or Notting Hill, and suddenly you feel it. A drizzle. Not a storm, not a downpour. Just that fine mist that seems to hang in the air like a secret. And what do you see? People, they don't run. They don't scream. They don't even open their umbrellas. They just pull up their collars, maybe adjust their scarves, and continue walking as if nothing has happened. That's rain in Britain, not an event, not an inconvenience, but simply part of the atmosphere. And somewhere, behind a fogged-up window, someone is making tea. Let's start with tea, because, let's be honest, no talk about Britain is complete without it. If the French have wine, the Italians have espresso, and the Americans have coffee that could power a jet engine, then the British have tea, calm, soothing, and infinitely adaptable. Tea in Britain is not just a drink. It's a ritual, it's comfort, it's small talk and emotional therapy, all in one ceramic cup. Now here's a fun little fact. The average Brit drinks around 100,000 cups of tea in a lifetime. That's roughly 3 cups a day. Though if you visit a typical English household, you'll see the kettle working overtime, so it might actually be more. And yes, the kettle is sacred. Every British kitchen has one, usually electric, often slightly stained with lime scale, and it's used for everything from tea to instant noodles. But the beauty of tea in Britain isn't just how often it's drunk, it's the timing. There's morning tea, afternoon tea, 11s, and the all-important cuppa during a crisis. Someone's cat died. Make tea. Just got fired. Tea. Won the lottery. Still tea. It's the emotional reset button for an entire nation. And it's funny how it's offered too. The phrase "fancy a cuppa" is practically a cultural handshake. It doesn't just mean "would you like something to drink?" It's more like, "I see you. You look like you need to talk. Come, sit down." Now, imagine this scene. A British person invites you over. You sit down and they ask, "How do you take your tea?" Don't panic. There's no wrong answer here, but there are opinions. Strong ones. Milk first or tea first? That's one of those eternal British debates, right up there with jam or cream first on a scone. Traditionally, milk first comes from the days when cups were delicate porcelain and hot tea might crack them. Pouring the milk first cooled the cup slightly. But today, it's just a matter of taste, or sometimes class, if you want to get sociological about it. The upper class used to pour tea first, the working class poured milk first. But now, honestly, most people don't care, as long as the tea's strong enough to stand your spoon in, as they say. And sugar? That's another battlefield. Some people take 1 cube, some 2, and others, the proper tea drinkers, will tell you sugar ruins the flavor. But here's a secret. No matter how you make it, a cup of tea shared with someone is like pressing pause on the world. It's also the great social glue of Britain. Business meetings, job interviews, awkward family discussions. Everything goes smoother with a cup of tea. In fact, one survey found that 65% of Brits said they'd rather talk over tea than over alcohol. And yes, even after Brexit. Even after all the debates and economic chaos. One thing that still unites the country is the kettle. Now, while the kettle hums in the background, let's step outside again, back into the drizzle. You see, rain is to Britain what sunshine is to California. It defines the mood, the pace, the rhythm of life. But here's the thing. The British don't actually hate the rain. Not really. They just accept it, quietly, almost with affection. There's a certain poetry in how they deal with it. You'll see someone waiting at a bus stop, soaked, but standing calmly, muttering, "Well, typical, isn't it?" with a half smile. That phrase, typical, is the most British response to disaster ever invented. In most countries, a downpour would empty the streets. In Britain, people just hunch their shoulders and keep moving. Umbrellas? Ah, yes, the eternal prop. Many carry them, few use them properly. A true Brit knows the difference between rain and proper rain. Drizzle, mist, spitting, pouring, pelting. There are at least 10 words to describe it, depending on intensity, and the conversations it inspires. Weather talk is the unofficial national language. When two Brits meet, the weather is always the first topic. Bit chilly today, isn't it? Could be worse. Supposed to brighten up later. That's not small talk. That's cultural bonding. It's how people say, I'm friendly, but please, let's not go too deep. Weather chat is safe. It's polite. It's neutral ground. It's the perfect way to fill silence without revealing too much. And that's precisely why it fits so perfectly into the British code of manners. Which brings us neatly to our third ingredient, manners. Now, if tea is the heart of British culture and rain is the background music, then manners are the choreography, the delicate dance that keeps social life running smoothly. To outsiders, British politeness can look charming or even comical. The endless sorry, the thank you, after the thank you, the way people cue as if it's a sacred ritual. But to the British, it's not performance, it's structure. It's how they make sense of the world. You might notice that in Britain, people apologize even when it's clearly not their fault. Someone bumps into them and they'll still say, "Oh, sorry." It's not literal remorse. It's a reflex of empathy, a little linguistic way of saying, let's not make this awkward. In fact, according to one study, the average Brit says sorry about 8 times a day, some even more. There's even a running joke that if a British person got stabbed, they'd apologize to the knife. But beyond the humor, there's something deeply cultural here. Britain is a small island with a long history of living in close quarters, from cramped cities to cozy villages, so manners evolved as a way to keep social peace. Politeness became the oil that keeps the machinery of daily life running smoothly. Now, let's combine these 3, tea, rain, and manners, and you begin to see a pattern. They're all about restraint, about calmness, about maintaining composure no matter what. When it rains, you don't complain. You adapt. When life's chaotic, you make tea. When conflict arises, you say sorry and carry on. It's the art of quiet endurance. That's the British superpower. Let me take you to a cozy scene that captures this perfectly. Picture a little tea shop somewhere in the English countryside, maybe in the Cotswolds. Outside, rain is tapping softly against the window panes. Inside, it's warm. You can smell freshly baked scones, hear the clink of china cups. A middle-aged lady behind the counter, perhaps named Margaret or Helen, pours tea into delicate cups with practiced grace. The customers, a mix of tourists and locals, speak in low, gentle tones. Someone sneezes, and immediately 3 people murmur, "Bless you, there's no rush." No raised voices, just the rhythm of everyday kindness, quiet, predictable, comforting. And then the rain gets heavier. Someone looks out the window and sighs. "Well, that's British weather for you." Everyone chuckles softly. The rain, instead of ruining the mood, becomes part of the moment. The tea feels warmer, the company closer, the conversation more genuine. That's the essence of it, finding calm in the drizzle. Of course, all this might sound a bit too idyllic. Modern Britain isn't always polite. People are busier, cities louder, and life more complicated. But the cultural DNA remains. Even in London rush hour, you'll hear people muttering sorry while elbowing through a crowd. Even in a boardroom, someone will suggest tea before a serious discussion. And even the grumpiest Brit will comment on the weather at least twice a day. It's not pretentious. It's practical. Manners help people coexist. Tea provides pause. Rain reminds everyone that nature's in charge, not us. And when you think about it, all 3 are about control. Or rather, gracefully accepting the lack of it. You can't stop the rain, but you can bring an umbrella. You can't fix the world's problems, but you can offer tea. You can't avoid awkwardness, but you can soften it with a polite word. That's the subtle genius of British culture. Instead of grand gestures or loud statements, it values the small, steady acts of civility. You see, tea isn't just a drink, it's a philosophy. It teaches patience. You have to wait for it to brew. It teaches moderation. Too strong or too weak, and it loses its charm. And it teaches ritual, the kind of comforting routine that gives shape to the day. Rain, meanwhile, teaches acceptance. It's the constant reminder that the world doesn't revolve around us. Plans change, socks get wet, and yet, life goes on. And manners? They teach empathy, the simple idea that the world runs smoother when we consider how others feel. Together, they create a national identity built not on power or dominance, but on gentleness, a quiet strength that doesn't need to shout. Of course, to really appreciate it, you have to experience it yourself. Try standing in a drizzle outside a British cafe. Listen to the sound of rain hitting cobblestones, the murmur of conversation inside, and the faint hiss of the espresso machine. Then, when you step in, order a pot of Earl Grey. Notice how the steam curls, how the server asks, "Sugar or milk?" with that polite half-smile. You'll realize, this isn't just about tea. It's about rhythm, about respect for small things. And if someone accidentally bumps your chair, you'll hear two sorries exchanged instantly, like a reflex. You might even find yourself saying it too. That's how politeness spreads here. Quietly contagious. You know, there's a line from George Orwell. Yes, the author of 1984, who once said that tea is one of the mainstays of civilization. He wasn't exaggerating. In times of war, rationing, economic downturns, tea always remained. It's the liquid symbol of resilience. And perhaps that's why the British handle hardship with such humor and understatement. They don't dramatize. They adapt. They put the kettle on. But before we go further into how these customs shape modern British identity, from office etiquette to pub culture, from train queues to rainy day small talk, let's just pause for a moment. Can you hear that soft rain outside your window? Imagine we're standing together on a damp London street, the air smelling faintly of wet leaves and fresh pavement. Somewhere nearby, there's a warm glow from a tea house. And someone's just poured another pot. That's Britain, understated, weather-beaten, endlessly polite, and we've only just begun. Now, where were we? Ah, yes. Standing on that damp London street, the drizzle whispering across our umbrellas, the scent of wet pavement mixing with the faint aroma of tea from a nearby cafe. You can almost hear the clatter of cups, can't you? The gentle hum of conversation, polite laughter, the occasional, "Oh, sorry, after you. Welcome back, my friends. Let's keep strolling." There's more to uncover about how these small, seemingly ordinary things shape an entire nation's soul. Because once you begin to understand how the British live with tea, rain, and manners, you start to see something quite profound. These aren't random habits. They're coping mechanisms. They're cultural survival tools, fine-tuned through centuries of unpredictable weather, polite repression, and social awkwardness. Let's talk about how these customs appear in everyday life, and how they quietly define the rhythm of British behavior, from morning commutes to late-night pub conversations. Imagine you're taking the London Underground during rush hour. It's packed. People squeeze together like sardines in business suits. Everyone's silent. Nobody makes eye contact. Yet somehow there's an order to the chaos. People line up. They wait their turn. They queue with monk-like patience. No pushing, no shouting. Just a quiet determination to get home without making eye contact with another human being. That's British manners in action. The queue is sacred, perhaps the most British invention of all time. You can almost feel centuries of colonial restraint and politeness condensed into that one line of people waiting for a bus. And if someone dares to cut in line, oh, the horror! You won't get a confrontation. No shouting, no scene. Just 1,000 icy stares and the quiet judgment of an entire nation. You might even hear a muttered, "Some people," followed by the softest tut sound. That's British fury at its finest. Subtle, controlled, and devastatingly polite. Now you might ask, why so polite? Why the endless please, thank you, and sorry, even when no one's done anything wrong? Well, to understand that, we need to look back a bit. British manners have deep historical roots. In the 18th and 19th centuries, during the Victorian era, etiquette was practically a science. It wasn't just about being nice. It was about maintaining order in a society obsessed with class and decorum. How you held your teacup, how you addressed a stranger, how you queued. All of it communicated who you were. Politeness became a social currency, and though times have changed, that mindset still lingers. Even today, there's a quiet pride in handling awkwardness gracefully. A Brit would rather trip over a curb, twist an ankle, and pretend it didn't happen than draw attention to themselves. Public embarrassment is worse than injury, so they've mastered the art of the casual recovery. Oh well, that's one way to get some exercise, followed by a polite chuckle. That's British composure, a blend of self-deprecating humor and iron restraint. And speaking of humor, that's the other ingredient that ties all this together, because behind every sorry and every soggy umbrella is a wicked sense of irony. Take rain, for instance. The weather can be miserable, gray, and unpredictable, and yet, the British treat it with affection. They don't rage at the sky, they make jokes about it. Lovely day, isn't it? Someone might say in the middle of a storm. It's not sarcasm exactly. It's defiance, coded in politeness. It's a national sport, this dry humor. The ability to laugh at discomfort without showing frustration. The weather is a running joke, a shared inconvenience that unites everyone. And perhaps that's the real secret. The British have learned to turn small annoyances into social glue. When it rains, everyone complains together. When the tea runs out, someone always offers to put the kettle on. When things go wrong, they say, "Could be worse." That phrase, "could be worse," might just sum up the entire national attitude. Now, let's circle back to tea for a moment, because while we've admired its symbolism, we haven't explored how it feels to drink it in Britain, especially when it rains. There's something therapeutic about that simple act. Hands wrapped around a warm mug, watching raindrops trace down the glass. It's as if the universe pauses for a moment. You sip, you breathe, you think. Tea isn't about caffeine or flavor. It's about comfort, about creating a pocket of peace in a noisy world. And there's a certain elegance to how it's served, even in casual settings. The cup is never filled to the brim. That would be messy. The spoon rests quietly on the saucer, and the milk is stirred gently, never clanked. There's a rhythm to it, like a ceremony of calm, and when it comes to afternoon tea, oh, that's another world entirely. The tradition dates back to the early 19th century, when Anna, the Duchess of Bedford, found herself feeling peckish around 4 o'clock. Dinner was served late, around 8, so she began asking for tea and snacks in her room. Soon, she invited friends to join her, and before long, it became a fashionable social event. Today, afternoon tea is an experience. Tiered trays, delicate sandwiches, scones with clotted cream and jam, pastries that look like tiny works of art. But what truly makes it special is the atmosphere. Unhurried, refined, and ever so slightly nostalgic. It's a reminder that, in Britain, even indulgence must be done politely. Now, while the tea cools and the rain keeps drizzling, let's talk about another form of British politeness, indirectness. The British rarely say what they mean, at least not directly. It's an art form. You have to learn to decode it. When someone says, "That's interesting," they probably mean, "I don't agree with you at all." When they say, "Not bad," it means actually quite good. And when they say, "We must do this again sometime," it often means we won't. It's not dishonesty. It's diplomacy. It's about cushioning your words so they land softly. A Brit will spend 5 minutes apologizing before offering criticism. "I'm terribly sorry. But if it's not too much trouble, could you possibly not stand on my foot?" It's wonderfully complex. A blend of empathy and avoidance that only makes sense once you've lived here for a while. And once you do, you realize that politeness isn't about perfection. It's about harmony. It's about making sure everyone feels comfortable, even at the expense of clarity. Let's peek inside a British office for a moment. You'll see this dance of politeness in full swing. Emails begin with, "Hope you're well," even if you've spoken 5 minutes ago. Meetings start with small talk about the weather, and feedback is wrapped in so many layers of courtesy you might not even realize you've just been criticized. "Oh, that's a bold choice," might mean, "That's terrible." "I'll bear it in mind," means, "I'm ignoring that completely." "It's fine," means, "It's not fine, but I'll survive." The British workplace is a masterclass in understated communication, polite to the point of poetry. And then, of course, there's the rain again, always the backdrop. Rain dictates the tone of the day. It's a natural rhythm maker. On sunny days, those rare golden miracles, the parks fill instantly with picnics, sunglasses, and disposable barbecues. People suddenly act like they've moved to the Mediterranean. But when the rain returns, and it always does, there's no despair. Just acceptance. Umbrellas bloom like flowers, coats are zipped, and life goes on. There's a beautiful resilience in that, a collective shrug that says, "Oh well, back to normal." Maybe that's why the British are so patient. They've spent generations learning to live with the unpredictable. You can't control the weather, but you can control your reaction to it. And that's what manners, tea, and humor are all about. I remember once, while guiding a group through Bath, it started raining halfway through the tour. Proper, sideways rain. The kind that makes you question your life choices. I turned to apologize, but before I could, one of the locals smiled and said, "Well, it wouldn't be England without it, would it?" Everyone laughed, pulled their hoods tighter, and kept walking. And somehow that rain, that miserable drizzle, made the day more authentic. That's the British spirit. No denial, no drama, just gentle acceptance wrapped in wit. Now, let's reflect on how these three, tea, rain, and manners, intersect with modern British identity. In an age of technology and global chaos, the British way of coping hasn't changed much. When the Wi-Fi goes down, they make tea. When politics get messy, they make jokes. When life gets overwhelming, they retreat into politeness and self-deprecation. It's not avoidance. It's emotional efficiency. It's knowing that not every problem can be solved, but every problem feels smaller with a warm drink in hand and someone politely saying, there. Even in multicultural modern Britain, where curry might rival fish and chips as the national dish, and where accents and traditions blend from all over the world, tea and manners remain constants. Rain too, of course. You can't escape that. But rather than being outdated, these traditions have evolved. You'll see young Londoners sipping matcha lattes, Mancunians chatting about the weather on TikTok, or Glaswegians apologizing mid-sentence while swearing affectionately. It's the same DNA, just with Wi-Fi. There's a quiet lesson here, one that visitors often take home without realizing it. The British way teaches you to slow down, to find calm in small things, to handle life's little annoyances with grace rather than outrage. Because if you can find beauty in a rainy afternoon, or comfort in a lukewarm cup of tea, you can survive almost anything. So, as we come to the end of our little cultural journey, let's take one last imaginary stroll. We're walking along the River Thames. The sky is silver, the air cool. Somewhere nearby, a busker is playing an old Beatles tune. People pass by quietly, each wrapped in their own polite bubble of thought. A couple holds hands under an umbrella. A man in a suit balances a coffee and a newspaper. A child jumps into a puddle and is immediately told, "Mind your trousers, love." And there, on a park bench, someone's sipping tea from a flask, smiling faintly at nothing in particular. It's not grand. It's not loud, but it's deeply human. That's Britain, a nation of tea drinkers in the rain, saying sorry when someone else bumps into them, and laughing quietly through the drizzle. If you ever visit, remember this. You'll never truly understand Britain through monuments or museums alone. You'll understand it when someone offers you tea without asking, when a stranger apologizes for the weather, when you realize that silence isn't awkward. It's respectful. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find yourself standing in the rain, smiling and thinking, could be worse. That's when you know you've become a little bit British yourself. Thank you for joining me today on this gentle wander through Britain's soul, where tea soothes the heart, rain softens the world, and manners hold everything together. Until next time, keep your umbrella handy, your kettle ready, and your apologies sincere. Cheers and take care.